Hello everybody, welcome to another Rick's Picks. Today I'm going to be doing my review of the G.I.Joe classified 3D print vehicle, the Cobra Water Moccasin. Now for any of you guys who know, Classified did come out with a Copperhead figure. Actually they came out two because they have the original style and also the Python Patrol. But they never came out the Water Moccasin, and that kind of gets my goat. Because of the factor, I feel like Copperhead and the Water Moccasin should have came together. I'm not a big fan of when you get a person who's supposed to come with a vehicle, but they don't come with it. It's the same thing with Cover Girl. She didn't come with the Wolverine, and that kind of got my goat. And that I winded up getting a 3D print of as well. And I did a couple of videos on that. That's a pretty cool series. I would suggest you check it out. But I'm not big into picking up the 3D prints. The only reason why I got these ones is because Classified more or less will never make these vehicles. All right. I mean, even now they're talking about like they're not even thinking about water vehicles. So who knows if or when they may ever come out with this. So in my thoughts, I can't have Copperhead without a water moccasin. So with all that being said, first off, I want to thank everybody who has subscribed. You're very much appreciated. And for any of you who watch this video and like it, and haven't subscribed, then I please ask that you subscribe and also check out my G.I. Joe playlist. So, without any further ado, let's get to the review. So here it is. Overall, it looks really good. What I'm thinking is that the seller who sold this to me probably got like a 3D, not a 3D print, a schematic of the original toy, and then made a 3D print of it because it looks pretty accurate for the most part from what I remember of the actual original toy. So there's a couple of things about this thing. First off, you can tell it's a 3D print. There are a couple telltale signs that it's a 3D print. So it's not that bad. I've seen other projects that have 3D print marks a lot worse than this one. So that isn't bad. I kind of, dig that. The other nice thing about this is that the stuff that would normally be details, like decals, are raised on this. So it's actually part of the mold. So like, you got this symbol, the access, the Cobra logos and whatever. They're all were originally decals, but instead on this, they're raised images, which I think is pretty nice. I do like that. The other pro to this is it came assembled. From what I noticed with most of your 3D prints, they come unassembled and unpainted. So you usually have to paint it yourself, put it together yourself. So this one, you do not have to do that with. So with that being said, we're going to give this thing a rotation and take a good look at it. So first off, you have this side spinning around this direction. Now you got your back where you can see the fins and also your propeller inside spinning around here. Now you got your other side. All right. And now you got the front. All right. Spin it back around. Flip it this way. All right. So now you got the top view. Okay. And spin it this way, you have the bottom view. Now, I don't think this thing will float just because of the factor, the way how the body is designed. You got it split right here. That goes all the way across the bottom. So unless if you decide to seal it or something, I have a feeling this thing will not float. Okay. So that would be a downer. The other thing too is it doesn't come with the torpedo skid that sits on the bottom, but I did contact the seller and they are actually giving me one to go with it. So that's pretty cool. So maybe it was meant to come with it and it just didn't, and now they're giving it to me, but whatever. So that's the overall look to it. So now we're going to look at the accessories and playability and what works with this. So first off, it does come with the blast effects on the front. They do come out, so if you want it not to have those, you can. All right. Put that back in there. The turret does move. So you do get movement of the turret, and it's removable, similar to the original one. All right. The dome does come off, this top piece. Darn it, thing just wants to spin on me today. There it goes. So this does come off. All right. The side panels come off. A little bit of a bugger to get off, but you just have to work it a little bit. There's like a system to it. Off of there. There it goes. So see, that does pop off on both sides, and then it just pops back in there the magic way that it does. Come on, get back on there. So it's a little bugger, kind of a bugger to get this on and off. There it goes. Like I said, once you know what you're doing, it works. Now on the top here, spin it like this. You do have this piece here that allows you to spin the propellers. This piece does not come off. With the original one, this would pop off and then you can see the engine and everything. But on this particular 3D print, that does not come off. Which isn't, for me personally, a make or break. You know. So when you spin it around this way, you see your propeller. Alright. Spins pretty freely with no issues. Alright. So now the real important question here is, does it work with your classified figures? You know, I mean, you could have all this cool stuff, but if you can't get your guys in it, there ain't no point to it. So, right here, got good old Copperhead. All right, first off, let's see how well these pegs work with the figure. All right. Oops. All right. Okay, cool. So his feet do go on him. All right, so there's 1 foot. It's a little tight, but they do work. Okay. Now let's see if he fits in the cockpit. All right, so let's bend his knees just a hair and try to get him on in here. All right. There we go. All right. So he fits in there nicely. Let's turn it up. All right, so he is in there. Now let's see if the glass will actually fit on while he's in there. Boom. All right. So he fits in there like he should. Next, we're going to see if anybody works in the cannon turret. So I figured Crocmaster would work well with him. He's a Bayou kind of guy. So he would definitely work with this. All right. Slide him in there. All right. So he works just as well. Got him in the cannon. No issues with that. So everything seems to work well with this. All right, so now for my final thoughts on this. So everything seems to work pretty well on this. I don't have any issues with all the parts that work. The blades spin like they should. The cannons look how they should. They have these nice little blast effects on the front. Now, if you're anybody who's good with painting, you could probably paint these up a little bit nicer so they look, you know, a lot more explosive than just a plain yellow. That's up to you. The figures fit with it pretty well. I don't have any issues with how they sit on it. Overall, it does look like the old Water Moccasin from the original Joe line. You know, I do like the factor that, you know, all the stuff that would be decals are raised plastic, so that gives it a little bit more of a unique look to it. I do like that about it. And also, I like the factor that it comes assembled. Like a lot of these kits, they usually come unassembled, unpainted, and you have to do it all. Which I do like doing stuff like that, but sometimes it's nice just to get something as is. So, at the end of the day, would I recommend this kit? absolutely I would. Like I said, from what I'm hearing from Hasbro and people who do reports on Hasbro, they're not thinking about doing any kind of water vehicles anytime soon. So if you want a water moccasin for your copperhead, then I would recommend this kit. Now I will be posting the information on the person who I bought this from on in the description. So go ahead and check that out. And last but not least, if you did like this video, go ahead and check out my G.I. Joe playlist and hit that like, share, and subscribe. They're all small clicks for you, but it really helps his channel grow. So until the next one, late.